for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the game.
no.
Let's go to the last part.
As always, we appreciate you starting your day with us. Let's get into this morning's first conversation.
Is the country's healthcare system more at risk, more than ever?
Why it has remained unaddressed for so long.
Political parties get lots of cash, big cash from financiers, and then when they get that now, you can't account for it.
But it's really the specialist nurses who we are in a greater shortfall for.
We can tap into the resources and have them, at least form some mentorship programs.
Highlight our food systems and which will attract persons from all over the world to come and experience something that, actually supports the local economy.
We're lucky that we have a vibrant legal system that allows change to take place, and it's not that matters are just swept under the carpet and discrimination is allowed to be perpetrated.
A lot of people don't know that, there were attempts to ban the carnival, suppress the carnival.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot have a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Nah, you don't need to register nothing. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate
many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and, I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe we defend criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Money is something we all deal with, but how many of us truly understand it? What if you could make better decisions with your money? Decisions that secure your future, protect your family, and bring you peace of mind. I'm Darren Jacobs, and I'm here to help you make sense of your dollars. Welcome to Dollars and Cents, the show that breaks down the financial world in ways that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents.
WESN.
Good morning and welcome to AM Prime on WESN. I am Naomi Macnish. So we all know someone with diabetes, or if not, you yourself. So today we mark diabetes. Well, this month is Diabetes Month. That's November, and we observe today as World Diabetes Day, Friday the 14th of November. Trinidad and Tobago is facing a worrying rise in diabetes cases, including a growing number of young people being diagnosed. So this morning, we speak with diabetes specialist and endocrinologist, Dr. Chad Visamba, about the surge in cases, the latest treatment options, and what early detection and access to care can mean for our population. Good morning, Dr. Visamba. Welcome to AM Prime.
Hi, morning, Naomi. Thanks for having me on, and happy World Diabetes Day to everyone.
Yes. So the thing with diabetes, I found to be so interesting. Well, first to begin with, the rise in cases, that has been very alarming. And I think even before I saw this article, I've been hearing a lot about diabetes, especially young people becoming diagnosed. And I'm just talking about like in my circle. Why do you think we're seeing such a sharp rise in diabetes, especially in young people today?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, Naomi. So, well, to be frank, young people aren't taking care of themselves, right? And it has a lot to do with their lives. So, for instance, you'd hear somebody say, oh, well, they spend 2 hours in traffic to go to work in the morning, right? Then they spend 8 hours in a job which is sedentary at a desk. And then 2 hours again in the afternoon, they are in traffic to go back home. And following that, of course, they have to take care of their kids. And then by the end of the day, they're just exhausted, right?
Yeah.
So young people aren't getting time to work on themselves. They're not eating the right things. No time for exercise, most of them. So that's why we're seeing the rise, you know. Life, you know, life is priority, but health is also your priority as well, you know, and health is wealth, as we say.
Yeah. Do you believe that, you know, Trinidadians are living with diabetes without knowing it? As in, is there an issue with an underdiagnosis?
Yeah, there is. I have been seeing numerous cases. For instance, somebody does executive medical for work, right? And you see a HbA1c, which is like your average blood test, you know, above 10%, right? Which it should be below 6% or 6.5%. A lot of people have no symptoms, right? So they're feeling well. They don't get tested. Sometimes you might hear somebody, you know, they take one of their parents' blood sugar monitors and they test their blood sugar, and it so happens to be 300 or 400, and unexpectedly, right? So the thing with diabetes, especially type 2 diabetes, is that you could be feeling 100% normal, and you can still be walking around with elevated blood sugar levels. So that is why it's important to get screened and tested, even if you are feeling completely normal.
Yes. What signs or risk factors should people be paying attention to, even if they're feeling healthy?
Yeah, so what would put you at higher risk? Of course, if you have a family member who's diabetic, right? Those of East Indian descent, you know, you see diabetes more prevalent in that population. Young women who may have polycystic ovarian syndrome, they are at higher risk of type 2 diabetes. Patients who have been on certain medications like steroids, for instance. And I think, Naomi, to be honest, just being a Trinidadian, you know, we are at higher risk. It's in our bloods. We're a sweet population, you know. So I would always advocate, you know, from the day you're born, maybe annually, you go to your doctor and get a checkup.
Right.
As young as you are. Because you could never tell what could be hiding and you wouldn't know it.
Right. So let's just pause the conversation, take it back a bit. For those that are not familiar, as you know, I don't think it should be, but let's just break it down. What is diabetes? I know there are 2 types of diabetes, type 1, type 2. So let's break those 2 down.
Sure. So type 2 diabetes is the one that you'll hear about the most, right? You could say roughly 90% of all diabetes may be type 2 diabetes, right? So type 2 diabetes entails a few different things. So there's an organ called your pancreas in your stomach, in your abdomen, which releases this hormone called insulin, right? And insulin is responsible for keeping your blood sugars down, right? Now, type 2 diabetes, in most cases, the insulin may be produced at lower rates by your pancreas, so you don't have enough insulin. But also, very commonly, there's another part of it called insulin resistance. So even if you have insulin, the cells that require insulin is not getting the blood sugars because the insulin is not working at the level of the cell. So the insulin can't send the sugars into the cells that require it, and the sugar in the blood remains high, right? So that is type 2 diabetes, which is the most common form. Then you have type 1 diabetes, right? That happens more in kids, adolescents, younger ages. And that actually represents like an absolute lack of insulin from the pancreas. So patients with type 2 diabetes, the only form of treatment is insulin treatment. If you don't go on insulin treatment, if you have type 1 diabetes, it could potentially lead to a life-threatening situation and even fatal. There are other rare forms of diabetes as well, medication-induced, some caused by a condition called pancreatitis, of course, gestational diabetes that occurs in pregnancy. So there are many, many forms, and they're actually categorizing newer forms, you know, as time goes by. So, but I think type 2 diabetes is what we should really be focusing on in Trinidad.
Yes. So there's been some new medications coming out as part of this conversation, semaglutide and tirzepatide. And these 2 medications I've actually heard a lot recently being used for other stuff apart from diabetes, right? Similar to Ozempic. right? People are using it now for weight loss. But before we get to that, could you explain how these drugs differ from older treatments for diabetes, since it's so popular now?
Yeah, of course. So as you just said, right, the drugs are being used for weight loss, right?
Yeah.
So these are one of the few classes of drugs for the treatment of diabetes that are actually approved, right, by the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, for weight loss. However, the drugs have to be used under the supervision of a specialist who knows how to prescribe it and has experience prescribing it. And also the patient has to be the correct patient, right? According to the FDA, your BMI, body mass index, needs to be above 30 before you can be considered a candidate, or above 27, so in the overweight category with an additional risk factor for heart attack, essentially. So if your BMI is above 27, but you have hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, you may also be a candidate. These drugs also have significant protective effects on many of your organs, right? So your heart, your kidneys, your liver, your brain, which a lot of the quote-unquote older drugs for diabetes do not have. So these drugs are revolutionary, but they must be used correctly, and the patients must be the correct patients.
Right. Are there major benefits to using these drugs apart from the weight loss aspect when it comes to keeping your blood sugar down, etc.?
Yeah, good question. So, of course, they're indicated for type 2 diabetes, they're indicated for obesity, but most recently on international guidelines, they have been approved for kidney disease, for instance, if you are diabetic, cardiovascular disease if you're diabetic. Most recently, semaglutide was approved for what we traditionally call fatty liver disease. Tirzepatide has also been approved for obstructive sleep apnea. Now, these drugs, of course, they induce weight loss, and a lot of these benefits on the organs, maybe because of that weight loss effect, but they also have anti-inflammatory effects, and the drugs are being studied quite a lot. You know, they've been coming up with a lot of new data that these drugs can be beneficial in a lot of conditions. They're being studied in like different forms of arthritis. They're being studied for patients who may be addicted to alcohol and certain other drugs. So there's a lot of work being done and a lot of benefits being found with these drugs.
Is it concerning that these drugs, because they work for so many different things, that it may potentially water down what its true purpose should be for? So then I mean, like you said, for your kidney, for weight loss, for something as alcohol consumption.
Because the drug works in so many ways, right? I think it's actually a bonus, right?
Okay.
So for instance, if you're a patient who has type 2 diabetes, you need to lose weight. You may have some protein in your urine, which could indicate, you know, some kidney damage, and you have abnormal liver blood tests, for instance, right? You could be now on a single drug such as semaglutide or such as tirzepatide, and it could actually target everything without having to be on multiple different drugs, right? And what I've also been seeing in some of my patients, you know, who go on those drugs, with the effect of weight loss, a lot of these conditions go into what we call remission. So patients who lose weight now, they tend to have an easier time managing their blood sugars, managing their blood pressures, cholesterol coming down. So a lot of times, even if they are on medications already for other things, they're able to wean off some of those medications. And then over time, may be able to wean off the semaglutide drug or tirzepatide drug and maintain everything once they do the correct things, you know, proper lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I think it's a benefit.
Okay. How accessible are these newer drugs in Trinidad and Tobago?
Yeah, so excellent question. So Ozempic and Mounjaro, which are the popular ones, right? They aren't registered for sale as yet in the country, right? And I believe this is because there's still a worldwide shortage and the demand is so high, right? So it's not for a lack of trying, but I believe there's just not enough for the drug companies to just ship out to our country for sale, right? We do have 2 other GLP-1 agonists that are available, however. One is called Victoza, which is liraglutide, and one is called Trulicity or dulaglutide, right? However, they are still not available in our public healthcare service. So patients who may not be able to afford them, who are in our public healthcare service, will still have a really tough time getting access to these drugs. And they aren't cheap by any means.
Yeah. Do you think that something needs to happen at, say, a policy level for these drugs to become more available, seeing as we do have a diabetes problem here in Trinidad and Tobago?
Yeah, excellent question. So, Naomi, so look, I've worked in the public healthcare system, right? And every day you would see somebody coming in with, stroke, heart attack, kidney failure, blindness, and every day you see multiple cases, right? And what is the common denominator? Most of the times is being diagnosed with diabetes, right? And being uncontrolled. So I would say if you fix diabetes, you potentially could fix everything else. So I would put it to the new Ministry of Health, let us work on fixing diabetes, and then we prevent all the other complications, the heart issues, the kidney issues, the strokes, the blindness, the amputations, right? If we really work hard, and we have to work hard at a primary healthcare level as well as the secondary level in our specialist clinics, right? And we need to get access to these drugs, right? And I'm pretty sure there are ways to get access to it. If you as the physician thinks that a patient needs one of these drugs, of course you speak to your superiors, right? And you get these drugs from wherever they are available, right? Of course it would be a process to get them, but I'm pretty sure it can be done. The drugs are available in the country, right? You just have to make a case that the patient requires it.
Right. So when it comes to, let's say, cost barriers or support for patients with this disease, what are the options that they have in the healthcare system? Yeah. So I think we need to start working at the primary level, right? Which are like our health centers, for instance. We need to be calling patients every 6 months or every year and saying, look, you need to come get tested, right? Whether you're feeling well or not, right? When I worked in England, that is how the NHS service was run, right? If you miss your appointment, your 6-month appointment, they would actively call you and email you and say, okay, you miss your appointment, you need to come in, right? And of course, these doctors and nurses, they don't get any additional money for seeing more patients, right? But that is just how a proper healthcare system should be run, right? So we detect things earlier, we treat it earlier, and we prevent the complications of diabetes, essentially, right? Now, getting access to drugs, that's a different conversation. But I believe the new Ministry of Health, they are working to get more drugs available into the public healthcare service. For instance, they've recently added more drugs to the CDAP program. Yeah. They're getting drugs such as the SGLT2 inhibitors, I believe, empagliflozin, called Jardiance, that's also now on the national formulary. So things could get done, once we push for it. Right. So as you mentioned before, that we need to fix the diabetes problem, and that will kind of trickle down and fix everything else. How realistic is that goal of remission for somebody with diabetes, especially type 2 diabetes, in Trinidad and Tobago? Yeah, so let us define remission, right? What does remission mean? Does it mean cure? Probably not, right? But it could mean that you can manage your blood sugar levels within a normal range without having to use any medication at all, right? You eat properly, you keep active, and you maintain normal blood sugars. Now, how could you do that, right? Now, in certain cases, advanced cases of diabetes, that may not be 100% possible. For instance, people who are really advanced, they may be on insulin, and if you try to come off that insulin, your blood sugar levels will just go back up. Some patients, however, who may be early on in their diabetic journey, may be able to sort of reverse this process and put it into remission. Now, I have been seeing that, especially with weight loss, right? Now, you reduce weight, you reduce what we call insulin resistance, right? And now the insulin that your body has, it tends to work a bit better. So the cells that require insulin now absorb the sugar from your bloodstream, and your blood sugar falls, and now your pancreas says, well, I could get a rest now, okay? Yeah. And slowly but surely, with that weight loss effect, some patients have been able to wean off medicine, and their pancreas seems to have been, working as it should, and their blood sugars have remained normal off of medicine. So it is really possible, and especially with these newer classes of drugs, I've seen it happen. Right. So just to clarify some more, when we speak about remission of diabetes, it's not necessarily reversing the diabetes, or can it be spoke about in the same way?
Yeah, so sometimes when you say reverse, we think of that as a cure, but I don't know if we can fully cure the process. I still think there would be an underlying issue with your pancreas, and you still have to do the right things. Remission, I would say, is a better terminology. So I would say, look, the process is still there, but you don't need to take tablets or take any injections to keep your blood sugars normal. So I don't think we should say reverse or cure, but I think remission is the correct word.
Let's talk about practical lifestyle changes. If you, again, I'll mention remission. If you want to go into remission of diabetes, what are the practical lifestyle changes that a person would need to make apart from medication, etc.?
Yeah, so managing diabetes is mostly about lifestyle, right? If you do the wrong things, you could take, all the medication that there is, and your blood sugars will still be high, right? So of course, we always hear about changing your diet and exercising more. So what should you change in your diet? I mean, the obvious thing would be to really reduce sugar, simple carbohydrates, of course. Fatty meats, for instance, may not help the situation. There's been a lot of talk now of high protein diets. While losing weight or attempting to lose weight, you want to hold on to as much muscle mass as possible, while losing the body fat, or adipose tissue, we call it. And of course, you pair that with some form of exercise, preferably, resistance training, strength training. You could add some cardio in as well, So for these drugs, Ozempic, tirzepatide, there has been a lot of talk about, very high protein diets, resistance training 3 to 4 times a week. And the drugs also make you eat less. So if you're eating less, you have to eat properly, right? So I would say it'll be really bland, but more protein, more vegetables on your plate, less carbohydrate, less fatty food, less fatty meat. And
no sugar.
I think that those are the lifestyle changes that you have to make. And of course, avoiding excess alcohol and smoking, well, that's obvious.
Yes. I think a lifestyle like that is not going to be easy for the average Trinbagonian, honestly. But it is necessary. So when we talk about screening, how accessible is screening for the average person to get?
Very good question. Now, as I said before, right, I believe that the health center should be actively following up patients and screening them, right? But I've heard many stories of patients going into a health center, saying that, they're worried about diabetes, or, they're concerned, but they've been turned away because they don't have any acute medical issues going on, and I think that's wrong, right? So I would advocate for every single health facility, at a primary healthcare level, our health centers, let us enroll all our patients into a program where we say, look, all patients in our catchment area, we call them at least once a year, twice a year maybe, and we get them tested. We check their blood pressure, we check their blood sugar, simple examination and medical history. And that's it, whether they feel well or not, and that is the whole point of having a primary healthcare service, essentially.
Yeah.
And I would like to see that across the country.
Right. So is it that the average person cannot just go to our healthcare system, health center, or the hospital to get screening for diabetes? It's not that simple.
Well, clearly it isn't. So, I think it should be, because I believe that's the role of those centers, not to manage really sick patients, but to pick up diseases before they even cause problems. And that would prevent patients now from having to go into our secondary and tertiary hospitals, And that would overall reduce disease burden and cost, essentially, to the country.
For somebody who is, let's say you at home, you check your blood sugar, and it's extremely high. What are some, that may not be the sign to say, well, I have diabetes, right? Because a spike in your blood sugar could mean a number of things. But what are the symptoms, or the active symptoms, that somebody should really be worried that I should go get screened immediately?
Yeah, excellent question, Naomi. So what are the symptoms that people may experience? So You may hear somebody saying, oh, well, I've been peeing a lot or waking up all night to go to the washroom, right? And that's a classic warning sign. And then, of course, if you pass more urine, you'll feel more thirsty, right? So excessive thirst is another one. Sometimes blurry vision, headaches, also two other signs. Unexplained weight loss in some patients may indicate like a lack of insulin. If you check your blood sugar, for instance, and it's always above 200, you know, that as well may be a warning sign, right? Because your body should be able to keep that blood sugar within normal limits. And when I say normal, if you eat food, 2 hours after, your blood sugar should be less than 140. And if it isn't that means you could either be pre-diabetic or diabetic. So those would be the major signs that you have to look out for.
All right. Now, before we wrap, what's your message to people who feel discouraged or overwhelmed living with diabetes, especially, you know, this month? Just something positive to share.
Yeah, Naomi, well, it's never easy, right? A lot of patients say, look, I can't cope, I'm frustrated, I don't have time, right? My message would be, look, this is something that you have to live with, right? Never give up. There are many healthcare providers out there that know how to treat diabetes. There are newer drugs available. And there are support groups such as the Diabetic Association of Trinidad and Tobago. And I believe the team for this year is focusing on diabetes in the workplace, right? A lot of young people say, look, I cannot manage my diabetes in work, right? I'm too busy, and then when I go home, I'm busy as well, right? So we have to now, you know, sit down and decide, okay, how could I make time, even while I'm at work, right, to help with my diabetes, right? Of course, it's a challenge, you know, but we have to spread this awareness, right, to employers as well, you know, because some people may need, for instance, breaks to take their insulin. A lot of people are scared to take insulin in work. You know, there's a stigma attached to insulin as well, right? So it's a lot to get done, but, you know, I would say, look, never give up. I've seen people come from, you know, the worst situation and you know, they've managed to do really well. With the correct guidance and the right, you know, the right support systems, right? If you're having trouble, you know, speak to your family, speak to your friends, join an online group, join the Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago. A lot of people out there are experiencing the same things as you, and you know, and what might work for them, you know, may also work for you, you know. So, but we need to continue to have, you know, meetings like this, spread the awareness, not just for World Diabetes Day, but around the actually, you know, because this isn't just, you know, about the month of November, right? This is something people have to live with for a really long time.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Misamba, for coming on the program this morning and sharing your knowledge with us about diabetes, and it's definitely a conversation that we will continue to have throughout the year.
Okay, thank you, Naomi. Thanks for having me anytime.
Thank you. So we are going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, we have more. Stay with me.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
I am Dr. Delphina Ovid, your friendly neighborhood dentist. At Community Hospital Dental Clinic, we offer examinations which include x-rays, basic oral cancer screening, and a treatment plan. We also offer cleanings, fillings, extractions, root canal treatment, and complete and partial dentures. Remember, you don't have to brush and floss all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Are you ready to shape the future of cooperatives in Trinidad and Tobago? Join us at the National Cooperative Conference 2025, hosted by the Cooperative Credit Union Movement Technical Committee in collaboration with Cipriani College from November 12th to 14th. celebrate policymakers, youth leaders, and experts as we explore innovation, digital transformation, and inclusive growth. Supported by TechView Credit Union and other leading partners. Conference entry $1,500 per person. Group discounts available. Be part of the movement shaping our nation's future. Register now at cclcs.edu.tt.
Struggling with heart health or frequent migraines? Discover the simple steps to reclaim your energy and vitality.
We're diving into a topic that affects about 422 million people around the world. Diabetes.
Tune into Wellness Unlocked, the series that delivers expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you take control of your health and well-being. Your health matters. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and take the first step toward better health.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Remember waking up early just to catch your favorite cartoons? WESN brings back those magical mornings with Retro Saturdays.
Thus, the Powerpuff Girls were born!
Where the young at heart relive the fun. Join us every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 12 noon, only on WESN, the content capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands, and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
The treaty is already being called historic. Awaited for years by ocean researchers and activists, 60 countries have just ratified it to protect the high seas. The decision was welcomed by the UN Secretary General.
As we face the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution, this agreement is a lifeline for the ocean and humanity.
A key measure of the treaty is the creation of marine protected areas to safeguard biodiversity. Today, only 1% of the high seas are subject to conservation measures.
The oceans beyond natural boundaries is the world's largest crime scene. When you do not have established governance and management rules, countries, private sector, illegal actors take advantage of the global commons.
Having a treaty is seen as an important step in fixing the problem.
So today we're celebrating an amazing and important step forward for our ocean. This treaty will help enhance the health and resilience of the ocean beyond national jurisdiction, the high seas.
The treaty also aims to make countries estimate their impact on the seabed before carrying out any activity there, instead relying on countries to regulate their own companies and ships.
So this is our story for today, our feel-good story for today. The United Nations High Seas Treaty officially set to take effect in early 2026 after reaching the critical threshold of 60 ratifications. This is being called one of the most important environmental agreements since the Paris Climate Accord, and for good reason. It is the first ever legally binding international treaty to protect biodiversity in the high seas, those vast areas of ocean that lie outside any country's jurisdiction. And considering that the high seas make up nearly 2/3 of the entire ocean, this treaty has potential to reshape the global environmental landscape. So we're going to break down a little bit of exactly what this treaty does and who is involved, the 60 countries that are involved in this treaty. So what exactly is the High Seas Treaty? The High Seas Treaty, formerly known as the Agreement on the Conservation and Sustainable Use of Marine Biological Diversity of Areas Beyond National Jurisdiction. So it's basically the body of water that doesn't belong to any country, right? This has been almost 2 decades in the making. So for years, scientists, environmentalists, and small island states have been sounding the alarm. The high seas were essentially the Wild West of the ocean. So no clear rules, no protections, and no real accountability. This treaty finally changes that. At its core, the treaty establishes a global legal framework for protecting marine life in areas where no single country has authority. It sets out 4 major pillars. The first, the treaty allows countries to create marine protected areas in the high seas, something that was never possible before. This is crucial for safeguarding endangered species, deep sea ecosystems, and the overall health of the ocean. Second, it requires environmental impact assessments for major activities in these regions. So if a company or country wants to carry out deep sea mining or large-scale fishing in international waters, there must be scientific evaluation, transparency, and accountability. The third pillar, the treaty addresses marine genetic resources. essentially the biological materials found in deep sea organisms. These organisms have huge potential for medicine, biotechnology, and scientific advancement. The treaty creates a system to ensure that the benefits of these resources are shared fairly, especially with developing nations. The fourth pillar, it includes major commitments to capacity building and technology transfer. This means that developing countries, especially small island states like those in the Caribbean, will receive support to study, monitor, and benefit from the deep ocean in sustainable ways. So all of this makes up the treaty and the major turning point in ocean governance. So now the countries that are involved in this treaty. So the treaty required 60 ratifications, and that milestone was reached in September of this year. Countries from every region signed on. Small island states, coastal nations, African nations, Latin American countries, and many in Europe were among the early supporters. A small country called Palau was the very first to ratify. The final 2 ratifications that pushed the treaty over the threshold came from Morocco and Sierra Leone. More than 145 countries have signed the agreement, indicating their intention to join. But here's an important point. Some of the world's largest maritime and fishing powers, such as the United States and China, have not yet joined the treaty. Their eventual participation will be crucial for the treaty to reach its full potential, but that has not happened yet. Still, the fact that 60 countries have taken this step is a historic achievement, and it signals a major global shift in how we will continue to treat the ocean. Now, why this treaty matters. Let's talk about its impact, because this treaty is more than just diplomatic work. It directly affects climate change, food security, and scientific innovation globally. So the treaty strengthens global biodiversity protection. So right now, only about 1% of the high seas is under any form of protection. And that is extremely low considering how crucial the ocean is to life on Earth. So by enabling the creation of large marine protected areas, the treaty helps the world move toward the global 30 by 30 target, protecting 30% of the world's land and sea by 2030. It also boosts climate resilience. The ocean absorbs around 25% of human-produced carbon dioxide and around 90% of excess heat trapped by greenhouse gases. Protecting the high seas ensures that the ocean can continue to do its work, essentially acting as the planet's life support system. Third, it promotes fairness. For decades, wealthier nations have had exclusive access to advanced marine research and the commercial use of deep-sea genetic resources. So this treaty creates a benefit-sharing framework so that developing nations also have the chance to benefit from its scientific and economic breakthroughs. Then the treaty will also bring order to previously unregulated spaces, which I think is the most important of all, whether this is including of deep sea mining, industrial fishing, or the creation of marine protected areas. The treaty requires transparency, reporting, and scientific assessment. So that level of governance has simply never existed in high seas before, but once, as of early 2026, it will. Now, even though Trinidad and Tobago's jurisdiction does not extend into the high seas, the health of those waters directly affect us. So our climate, our fishing industry, our marine biodiversity, even our coastlines, and our weather systems depend on the state of the wider ocean. So our waters do not extend out as far. We do not have any access to the high seas, basically. But everything is connected. All waters are connected, right? When high seas ecosystems collapse, tropical regions in the Caribbean will feel the effects first. When the ocean warms or loses biodiversity, we see it in coral bleaching, declining in fish stocks, and increasingly unpredictable weather patterns. The treaty also opens new opportunities for Caribbean states in marine science monitoring and technology areas where we have traditionally been left behind. So for Trinidad and Tobago, this is not just, it will not just be an environmental issue, but it's also a national security issue, an economic issue, and a climate resilience issue. So because the treaty has now reached 60 ratifications, it enters into force January 2026. The next major step will be the next major step will be the first conference of the parties, where governments will decide how the treaty will actually be implemented. So this will happen in January 2026. This includes setting rules for the environmental impact assessments, establishing how marine protected areas will be created and enforced, and determining the structure of the benefit sharing system. So that's where ideally the real work will begin. So this was a really interesting story. Again, this is the first time ever that anything like this is going to be happening, where any sort of work, any sort of regulation, policy will be placed on the high seas, which is, again, that area, that body of water that no country has legal claim or rights to, but bigger nations would have had access to it because of their resources that smaller nations do not have. But something like this will create regulation for smaller nations to have access, and bigger nations can't just keep all research, resources, findings, anything for themselves no longer. Yeah, so that was our feel-good story for this Friday. The next thing I want to move on to, we tried to get a conversation on this. This is the Udicot pet ban controversy. I reached out to the Trinidad and Tobago Promoters Association to see if they would be willing to come on to the show this morning and discuss what has been happening, but they shared that they are not looking to comment further from what they have already commented on at this point in time, so that wasn't able to happen. But I can give you all a quick update as to what has been happening since Udicot put out their comments. Right. So basically, So just for some context, the decision to ban FETs at the Brian Lara Cricket Academy and all Udicot managed facilities, this was a decision by the government, within the government, and among communities who live near these major event venues, right? What we do know is that the government remains unmoved by the criticism. The minister in the office of the Prime Minister, which is Barry Padarath, he described the uproar as a storm in a teacup. That's quoted. Insisting the aim is not to shut down Carnival, but to better regulate noise pollution and protect residential communities. Mr. Padarath says the issue will be handled with a combination of stakeholder consultations and upcoming legislation, which the Attorney General is already drafting. The minister argues that Udicot has several facilities, such as the Hyatt Regency and the Government Campus Plaza, that fall outside residential zones and can still host major events. He also made the point that many of these venues incur heavier operational costs when they're used for large-scale fetes they weren't designed for, with revenue nowhere close to covering the stay-in or security, maintenance, and repairs. Culture Minister Michelle Benjamin echoed the government's position, saying residents around the Brian Lara Cricket Academy have complained for years about excessive noise, and the administration is acting in the interest of the young, the elderly, and even animals affected by noise pollution. She stressed that fetes are not being stopped. Instead, the plan is to identify more appropriate spaces that allow Carnival to expand while reducing its negative impact on communities. But on the other side of this conversation, the Trinidad and Tobago Promoters Association has warned that the ban is destructive, short-sighted, and a death knell for the entertainment industry, especially coming less than 3 months before Carnival. They note that more than 20 major events have already lost confirmed venues, and the ripple effects extend across the country, affecting artists, DJs, technicians, bar owners, caterers, small businesses, and up to 100,000 seasonal workers. Their concern is not only the ban itself, but the way it was implemented, suddenly, without consultation, and alongside increasing alcohol prices that are already challenging the sector. So interestingly, the San Fernando's Mayor Robert Paris views the situation as a potential opportunity for South, with the Brian Lara Cricket Academy now off limits. He believes that Skinner Park could be the new hub for major Carnival events, a shift that may boost the city's economy, create new entrepreneurial opportunities, and revive San Fernando's entertainment scene. Promoters have already begun calling his office to explore alternatives. This was one of the things I was interested in hearing about. If the government does not plan to rescind their decision, then what are the other options that these promoters would have for events? So the discussion around noise pollution, it goes beyond the FET's Legal Affairs Minister Saddam Hussein reminded the public of the government's recent ban on Independence Day, which was the fireworks, and confirmed that new firework legislation aimed at controlling noise levels is in its final stages. So we will begin to hear official rules and laws against these noise pollution, against the noise pollution. So this issue is much bigger than the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. We're looking at a broader government push to modernize noise laws, protect communities, and reshape how public entertainment coexists with residential life. So at the same time, the entertainment sector, which fuels Carnival's global reputation and thousands of livelihoods, feels blindsided and destabilized. And honestly, it's understood, because like the Promoters Association stated, that it's not what they did, but how they did it. It came 3 months before Carnival, and many fetes and promoters, many events have already confirmed their spaces, which would have been the Hyatt Regency, Brian Lara Cricket Academy, and now they can no longer use those spaces. So whereas ticket sales would have already gone out, and they have to rework, basically. So some of these fetes would be potentially cancelled if another space does not become available. And it has to be a space that can meet that level of patrons and space. So again, for now, the government remains firm with their decision that it will not be reversed. Promoters remain silent while they reorganize and figure out what can happen next. Hopefully we will be able to have a conversation with them soon as to what is the updates and what are the decisions that they've made within the association for Carnival 2026. And then I can give you guys an update as well. So we will track those developments closely and see what becomes of it. Finally, the last story I want to mention. Unfortunately, Trinidad and Tobago's World Cup dreams comes to an end. So, so last night at the Hazy Crawford Stadium, the Soca Warriors played to a 1-1 draw against Jamaica. For more than 20,000 fans who filled the stadium, this was more than a match. It was a moment of national anticipation, a moment where even with the odds stacked against us, hope still lived. And when Kevin Molino found that late equalizer in the 86th minute, you could feel the stadium shift from despair back to disbelief. But in the end, it simply wasn't enough. Trinidad and Tobago now cannot finish in the top 2 of Group B, leaving us without any contention for both direct qualification in the intercontinental playoff. So that's really unfortunate. This moment is a moment of reflect where Trinidad and Tobago football stands, the rebuilding, the expectations, and the reality that we must now confront honestly. So Dwight York took over the men's senior team. 1 year ago, the country saw something it hadn't seen in a long time, renewed excitement. So they were very hopeful when Dwight York took over the team, because York's reputation, his success at Manchester United and his leadership at the 2006 World Cup reignited belief, the country's belief in the Soca Warriors. But with high hopes comes high expectations, and sometimes unrealistic ones. So York made bold choices. He reshaped the squad, brought in new foreign-based players, and rotated heavily in search of the right balance. Some long-serving players who had been consistent under previous coaches found themselves on the outside looking in, including Aubrey David, Shannon Gomez, and Michel Poon-Angron. He eventually opened the door to younger talent and overseas prospects like Rio Cardines, Kobe Henry, Jaren Jackie, and Dante Seed. All these are names that are coming up here. These decisions sparked debate for over a long period of time before last night's results for this match. And this failed qualification campaign now raises bigger questions about Dwight York's choices for the team this year. Did he change up the team too quickly? Was the team given enough time to build a stable core? And were our expectations for a one-year turnaround even fair in the first place? So that's the update with the Trinidad and Tobago stance for the World Cup. So we are going to take a quick break now. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Low energy, Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
I am Dr. Delphina Ovid, your friendly neighborhood dentist. At Community Hospital Dental Clinic, we offer examinations which include x-rays, basic oral cancer screening, and a treatment plan. We also offer cleanings, fillings, extractions, root canal treatment, and complete and partial dentures. Remember, you don't have to brush and floss all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Are you ready to shape the future of cooperatives in Trinidad and Tobago? Join us at the National Cooperative Conference 2025, hosted by the Cooperative Credit Union Movement Technical Committee in collaboration with Cipriani College from November 12th to 14th. Meet policymakers, youth leaders, and experts as we explore innovation, digital transformation, and inclusive growth. Supported by TechU Credit Union and other leading partners. Conference entry $1,500 per person. Group discounts available. Be part of the movement shaping our nation's future. Register now at cclcs.edu.tt.
Good morning and welcome to AM Prime on WESN. I'm Naomi Macnish. So this morning we are talking about the upcoming National Cooperative Conference 2025 happening from November 12th to the 14th at Cipriani College. This landmark event aims to celebrate cooperative resilience and reposition the movement as a strategic driver in national development. So joining me this morning, Mr. Wayne Estrada and Brian Moore, both members of the Cooperative Credit Union Movement Technical Committee, which has partnered with Cipriani College to host this year's conference. Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to AM Prime.
Good morning, and thank you for having us.
Pleasant morning to you, Naomi.
Yes, thank you.
Pleasant morning to Trinidad and Tobago.
So, just for some background, for those who may not be familiar with the Cooperative Credit Union Movement Technical Committee and what it is exactly, can you just highlight that and tell us what role does it play in the sector? Yes, Mr. Moore.
Okay. The Technical Committee of the Cooperative Credit Union Movement was born, I would say, in the around 2010, 2011, around there, when the movement coalesced to speak with one voice with respect to a creature called the Credit Union Bill, which the then government was trying to introduce, I would say, through the back door, to regulate credit unions as if they were banks. We took strong objection to that because that was a clear and present danger for the cooperative sector, but more particularly the credit union movement. So the technical committee was born then to bring the movement, especially the credit union movement, together to speak with one voice in the negotiations with the central bank, because the government had indicated that the central bank would have been the entity that would prosecute the introduction, if you will, of that that credit union bill. So it was born there. And over time, it has coalesced into an entity that does research, develops papers, seeks to bring the various strands of the movement together in an attempt to allow the cooperative movement to play the pivotal role that it can play in national economic and social development. This National Cooperative Conference 2025 is but another initiative of the Technical Committee working now in conjunction with the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. The committee, one of the aims of the committee is to bring all the relevant parties connected to the cooperative sector, bring them together to work as one, if you will, in the interest of pushing the aims and objectives of the sector further.
So what is the motivation behind hosting this cooperative conference at this time?
Well, we believe that in these growingly uncertain economic times, that ordinary citizens will have to stand on their own 2 feet and depend on the organizations that they create to protect and further their own interests. This sector has been neglected, as far as I'm concerned, by successive governments, notwithstanding the important role it can play in national economic development and in the alleviation of many of the issues, many of the challenges that the ordinary working man and woman have, you know. And we want to highlight the sector. We want to indicate to the government, for example, that there's a need for the modernization of the legislation that governs and regulates the sector. The last update we had was in 1971, and you will agree that things have changed since 1971. So that is one of our aims. Another important aim we're trying to get the country and the government to understand is that there must be a national policy for cooperatives, because that national policy will guide legislation, will indicate to all and sundry what is the government's position on the sector, how is the government intending to promote the sector, how is the government intending to tie in the potential of the sector into national development, national economic development. So this conference really is to shine a spotlight on the movement and to indicate to related parties perhaps what their roles could be in furthering the fortunes of the sector, and by so doing, alleviating or ameliorating some of the challenges that ordinary working people have. Because the government more and more has no resources to spend willy-nilly on many issues. So we, the public, have to take up some of those things. And this conference is, like I say, to focus a light on some of these issues.
A lot of it is going to be education and just helping the public to understand the importance of the cooperative sector.
Yes, and indicating to our authorities what their role is, and they should know. Trinidad and Tobago is a signatory to one of the ILO conventions on cooperatives. And that ILO convention provides, one of the things it provides for, it says that governments must provide an enabling environment, legislation, and so on for that sector. Notwithstanding the fact that our government has signed this ILO convention, I don't know that they pay any attention to it at all. And again, this conference is an attempt
So
to
the
deal with some of these
conference
things.
is built around the theme Celebrating Cooperative Resilience, Repositioning the Movement as a Strategic Drive in National Development. So we can hear from Mr. Estrada now. Can you break down, what that means in practical, everyday terms for our listeners?
Good morning again.
Good morning.
And to add to what Brian would have said, and in keeping with your question, the National Conference aims to reposition the cooperative movement as a strategic partner in national development. And by convening these policymakers, practitioners, youth leaders, and international speakers, the event will explore innovative pathways for legislative reform, digital transformation, and this is inclusive of growth. It is also to serve as a launchpad for national cooperative policy framework and youth innovation, whereby we're challenging and ensuring that actionable outcomes would come from this conference. So Brian would have already shared what are some of the objectives, which is policy advocacy, legislative reform, education and awareness, innovation and digital transformation, youth engagement and leadership, and regional and international integration. Now, we don't really have the space that we deserve in national development. And we really want to reposition the cooperative movement, which is inclusive of credit union, so that government could facilitate, virtue by legislation and other resources, for us to achieve those objectives, playing that major part in national development.
So if we can get specific as to what are the challenges or the gaps that have emerged that this conference hopes to address when it comes to cooperatives, because cooperatives have existed for a very, very long time in Trinidad and Tobago, but it's not something that people are aware of or are familiar with, to say. So what are these challenges or these gaps that the conference is hoping to address?
I mentioned...
Well,
Sorry, Wayne, you go ahead.
Yeah, as you mentioned, gaps. The cooperatives, in cooperatives, there are financial cooperatives, that's the credit unions.
Yes.
And there are non-financial cooperatives, like, if I must mention the taxi corp, the gas station on Rice Road, they are considered non-financial, the agricultural corp. But in terms of credit union that deals with giving loans, granting loans to members, and members who save to borrow, there are some gaps there. One of which, within the credit union, and one in which we have advocated strongly for, is that there is legislation that creates a barrier to deceased members' beneficiary receiving the full amount of the deceased member's estate. What do I mean when I say that? The outdated legislation is only granting deceased members up to $50,000 upon the passing of their loved ones. We would like to have the legislation changed, the law changed, so that when a member dies, the beneficiary should receive all that was left for them, instead of having to go to the court to get anything in excess of $50,000. Further than that, the legislation does not permit credit unions to have small business, the SMEs, to do business. And these are some of the things that impact heavily on the credit union movement and kind of stay in the growth of the credit union movement. More than that, as I would add, the credit unions do have that opportunity to encash and negotiate government checks. That is something that we need to get the policymaker, the government, to treat with. We have been advocating for that for the longest while, but there is no traction. We haven't heard anything in the last budget to treat with that, notwithstanding that we have tabled so many proposals and suggestions to this government and previous government. Thank you.
Mr. Moore, do you have anything to add to Mr. Estrada's
No,
answer?
Wayne has been pretty comprehensive. I want to get or return to the question of recognition. You look pretty young, so I don't know if you remember the Black Power disturbances in 1970. Arising out of that, there was a sector formed called the People's Sector, right? Out of that came a lot of the institutions we have now, which were designed to serve the people. One of the institutions identified and recognized in that people's sector was the cooperative sector. So then we began to have ministries of cooperatives, with cooperatives in the name of the ministry.
Right.
So in more recent times, we would have had, for example, the Ministry of Labor and Cooperatives, and the Ministry of Something and Cooperatives. We have noticed over the past while that for whatever reason, you don't hear the Ministry of whatever and cooperatives. Cooperatives is not mentioned anywhere when it comes to naming of ministries. We take that as an indication that there's a misunderstanding of the potential of the sector. If you're not even going to bother to recognize its importance in the name of a ministry.
Do you think it can be a case where the idea of cooperatives have been intertwined or merged with something else?
No, we can't merge with anything else. Cooperatives have a distinct footprint. There's legislation that governs the operation of cooperatives, including credit unions, outdated as it is. I said 1971, right? So it's not a question of us being intertwined in anything.
Okay.
All right?
Yes. So let's talk about the event when it comes to the activities, the participants. I know I saw there were a few participants or speakers that are expected to be present. Who are these, if you can share with us, and also what perspectives are they bringing to this conference?
Okay, we have participation from the ILO, Mr. Birek, I hope I pronounced his name correct, and he is going to bring, I suppose, an international context. And like I said, the ILO has this convention on cooperatives, and we can expand on that. We also have a Mr., and I hope I pronounce his name right, Koryapara from India. He has a firm, business solution firms, that actually started with work on credit unions and cooperatives in India. And his company has expanded, now it's international, and we have him to bring his perspectives as well. We have invited people from the ICA, which is the International Cooperative Alliance. We have also invited folks from WACU, which is the World Council on Credit Unions, and of course the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions. Locally, we have, for example, Suniti Maraj from the Lloyd Best Institute of the West Indies. We also have Mr. Brian Tangwell, who is the CEO of I think, the largest credit union by assets in the country, which is TechU. So we have a mix both of international and local presenters, I suppose, who will bring different flavors to the conference.
Yes. One part,
may I add to what Brian would have said there? Our partner in driving this conference is the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. And they will be sharing as well with the team the value of cooperatives and credit, and indeed credit union, to the participants of this conference. One of the things, and they are in fact the recognized institution that treats with that throughout the Caribbean. And one of the things I have been advocating for, and I think most people, and indeed Cipriani, I fly the flag for Cipriani as well, is that we need to somewhat institutionalize that cooperative members, or credit union staff members, must get some sort of a knowledge and training coming from this recognized institution as to what cooperativism is about and credit unionism. So Cipriani would be doing a presentation in terms of that. Further to that, we have speakers in the context of a financial ombudsman who would show what the role is of the financial ombudsman and what the potential role could be for the financial ombudsman in the space of this financial landscape in Trinidad and Tobago, and putting an end to credit unions. Beyond that, we will have the FIU sharing what compliance is in the person of Mr. Nigel Stoddard. So, we have those kind of presenters, want of a better term, facilitators, that would share with the participants the relevance of those things and how they impact on their organization and the national landscape. So I want to share that with the public and your viewers and listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So one part of the program highlights youth innovation. Why is it important for a youth to be part of this conversation, for young people to get involved in this?
Well, we old-timers are not always going to be around. And for the credit unions to continue to grow, there must be involvement of young people. I mentioned a little while ago that more and more ordinary citizens will have to stand on their own 2 feet and depend on the institutions that they develop in their own interests. Though these institutions, these cooperative institutions, by and large, must involve significant participation from young people. They are the ones who will have to develop it in their own likeness and image. They are the ones who will have to determine how the cooperative sector can better serve their economic and social needs. So it is important to get them in, sometimes at the planning stage, at the research stage, and so on, so that they will have a hand in determining how this sector best serves their needs and how they can participate fully in the development of the sector. So the involvement of youth is very important, and we are laying particular emphasis on at least giving young people an opportunity to understand what their role is and must be in the cooperative sector.
What is if you can list maybe 1 or 2 things that persons can expect to get out of this conference? So once they attend and they leave, what is something that they will
raise that thing? So let me give you some broad categories. The first would be, in my view, the information and the education about the sector. What is this cooperative sector? 2, what is the potential for national development of the sector? Yes? What are the needs of the sector so that it meets the modern challenges and can continue, so that it can continue serving the market that it does. But one of the significant things that we insisted about this conference is that it must not simply be a talk shop, and at the end of the 2 days, everybody goes their merry ways, and that's the end of that. A very important part of this conference is the development of a roadmap, so that when the conference is finished, we have a roadmap of how we are going to proceed to meet some of the objectives that we have set. So the conference is really the easy part of the work. The implementation of that roadmap is where the work begins.
For persons listening, let's say, you know, they're still kind of unsure, who exactly is this conference for? The type of person, is it a union leader?
This conference is for everyone.
Okay.
I keep harping back to the fact that more and more today and going forward, people are going to have to stand on their own 2 feet and depend on the institutions.
You can finish, that's okay, you can finish your answer.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the question again?
Who is this? That's okay.
Yes, who is it
this
for?
Conference for?
This conference is for everyone. Like I was saying, people will have to depend more and more on their own, stand on their own 2 feet and depend on the institutions they create in their own image. So, first of all, it is for that sector of people who belong to cooperatives, who belong to credit unions, including credit unions, who may have difficulty in negotiating their needs with other kinds of financial institutions. I don't know if you have had the misfortune to listen to people, especially today, who are trying to negotiate anything with the traditional financial institutions, particularly banks. I tried to open an account with one of the banks for my granddaughter. It took me 2 months.
Wow.
I don't know if you ever tried opening a business account.
No, it can be very tedious, definitely. Yeah? So the question that we got was banks or credit unions, which one is better?
Credit union, the cooperative sector has a kind of motto that says, not for profit, not for charity, but for service. The cooperative sector, including credit unions, is about service to ordinary working people and any others who may want to come in.
I think that speaks for itself.
I don't know if you know what banks and other financial institutions are about. They are strictly about profit, and I'll go out on a little limb here. They really don't care if they flatten you in pursuit of profit. The cooperatives have a different philosophy. We operate with different principles that put people and their needs first. The sector, I think, is the only sector that brings ordinary people in, exposes them to the management of a financial institution. The ordinary working people own and manage these institutions in their own interest. That's just one difference between cooperatives and other financial institutions. I can go on and on and on, but let me stop here.
I think that we can, we can carry that conversation another time.
Yes.
But, okay, so I want to ask, obviously, in terms of cost and how can people register, but we'll get to that. Mm-hmm. Before we get to that, do you anticipate that this conference will become an annual thing? Is it something that should become an annual thing?
I don't know. I couldn't say with any certainty at this point that it will be an annual thing. But I think events and conferences such as this, maybe with a different focus, certainly will be in the thoughts of the technical committee.
Right.
Whether it's annual or biannual or whatever it is. The efforts will have to continue, because reaching your goal in things like these is not a one and done. Mm-hmm. You have to be persistent.
Yes.
You have to be there all the time. So while I couldn't say whether it will be annual,
I guess that it will determine how things go post this conference. And
sometimes we want to have 2 or 3 events in a year, depending on what the environment is.
Right. So now let's get to that part, registration and how can persons get more information if needed.
Let me turn those questions over to my colleague, Mr. Estrada.
Yes, Mr. Estrada.
Yes, thank you, Anika. Members and the public at large can participate in the conference, which is from the 12th to the 14th, with an opening ceremony at the Hyatt on Wednesday the 12th, between 6 and 9 p.m. And in that opening session, all the presenters, moderators, and specially invited guests would be part of that. The cost for attendance is $500. It's in the form of a cocktail and socializing and networking. Persons can be engaged by going on a flyer that we would have shared by soft copy, and you can activate. That went to all the credit unions, is on social media and otherwise. You can activate the area that speaks to registration, and in so doing, when you go in there and you see the information, you would determine how many participants will be coming, and you can pay by virtue ACH and check and other means. It shares that. That is for the opening session on a ceremony on Wednesday. On the Thursday and Friday, where the workshop and other activities will be taking place, this would be at the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies at Valsine. The registration there is $1,500 for the 2 days, 2-day participation, and it's inclusive of meals, snacks, takeaways, giveaways, packages, and you would be able to participate in the activity that is a presentation made by these facilitators. They would be given maybe a flash drive or a link to those presentations after they would have participated. So they can go, all the credit unions would have received invitations, and there are some 130 credit unions out there in Trinidad and Tobago. The credit union movement population is close to 700,000. And we would have contacted them by email, social media, WhatsApp, Facebook, and the like. And they can go in there. We create the awareness. The desire is there. So they can come along by merely going in there, click the link. It will direct them to Cipriani and share with them all the information as to how they can register and participate. There's a discounted rate for persons who are sending 5 or more persons. Instead of the 1,500, it is 1,200 for party credit unions or groups that are more than 5 persons. So that's it in a nutshell. But more than that, I also want to add, in terms of our objectives as well, is to educate and make the public much more aware of how cooperatives and credit union operate. Very much so, is what role cooperatives play in national development. That national development, I want to put in this plug, very important. The cooperative credit union movement has, and the development has more than 1,000 direct employees. So the youths are employed there. And there's an opportunity with information being shared, how they can be better employed. That is playing a critical role in national development. Some youth should develop their skills and can seek employment, not only employment. We're creating the roadmap. As Brian mentioned earlier, most of the people who handle the governance of cooperatives and credit unions are aged. So we're looking for some of the youth in order to maintain and get sustainability of this cherished movement, which is over 70 years old. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Estrada. And Brian as well, thank you, both gentlemen, for joining me on the program this morning and sharing that insight and helping us to understand the importance of the cooperative sector. So I think that's all for today. If you would like to add anything else?
No, I think we've covered most of what we need to cover. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
But just to share that registration is open still for persons to participate through today, next week. Registration is open until the day of the conference.
I also saw a website that persons can visit, cclcs.edu.tt. Is that correct?
Yes, that is the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. You can click on that link and they would have access to all the information.
Good. All right, guys. So thank you once again. And we look forward to hearing more about the cooperative sector, and hopefully that you all can get all the things done that you're hoping to get after this conference is successfully over. So do enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe.
Yes, thank you very much. And
thank you for having us.
I'm extending an invitation to WESN to send you to the conference to cover that conference. Yes?
Yes.
Good.
That sounds good, like a plan. All right, guys. So we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have more. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
WESN.
Are you ready to shape the future of cooperatives in Trinidad and Tobago? Join us at the National Cooperative Conference 2025, hosted by the Cooperative Credit Union Movement Technical Committee in collaboration with Cipriani College from November 12th to 14th. Meet policymakers, youth leaders, and experts as we explore innovation, digital transformation, and inclusive growth. Supported by TechU Credit Union and other leading partners. Conference entry $1,500